Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. Welcome to the Upshift, the podcast where passion meets momentum and great ideas take the wheel. Listen up, changemakers. This is your community, your reset, your time to fuel up. I'm Angel Howard, a reformed corporate executive turned somatic movement therapist, author, and speaker. And this week's tune-up is led by Dr. Laura Cole, who's excelling in spiritual life coaching. Hey, Laura. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good. You're special because I've seen you speak and you're very captivating. Yet I know now that you're really excelling in the spiritual coaching, but can you tell us a little bit more about that and what makes you unique?
Well, so my spiritual life coaching, I do it through speaking. And then if somebody's interested, then I can pick up clients from that. But what I love to do and what's different for me is I use my sign language background. Because I've been a sign language interpreter for over 25 years. So I'm able to present not just speaking like most people do, but I also use interpreted music through American Sign Language because it helps people connect auditorily, visually, movement. I become the singer, basically, and it's a great way to teach the message, not just by talking at someone, but it really helps them get involved with what I have to say, and it's able to get on the soul level. So that's how I do things a little bit differently than most.
Yeah, it sounds like it really is communication, whether it's verbal, sign, it's physical, or like what I do, somatic. We're speaking all the time with that. How do you help people? How is it that what you do, and how do you work with people? But what's your goal with someone?
Well, I say my goal, I have two with my clients, is for one, for them to say, I love my life and to find peace. But because a lot of people think that they have to get certain things in order to be happy, either get the relationship or monetary treasure, that their new home or better health. But what they don't realize is actually if they can find peace with exactly where they are, then they can say they love their life. But I start them with, I love my life from all these things that's coming into it, how they're manifesting. And through that, they are able to find peace and contentment, relaxation, and be happy with exactly where they are. And I do this through teaching them the power of the mind. I do a lot of the law of attraction manifestation work about what we focus on truly will, that energy that we give out will definitely come back to us. And people just don't understand the power that they have with their thoughts and their words. And when you're complaining about something, you're giving that just as much energy as if instead of seeing yourself as doing something that you would love, but people get so stuck in their story of where they're not happy and have that go on over and over and over in their head and their conversations. And that's the energy. So that's the loop that they stay in, as opposed to if they cut off that negative thought that's not serving them and go to what would I love, open up the new doors of possibility, then they're able to start giving more energy to that. And that creative energy comes into their life and they're able to see it manifest.
Okay. Do you mind if I drill down a little bit? Because you and I both been in this health industry for a while. And, there's people out there that are in the change-making world that are more engineers or more technical, but they have some sort, you would think, spiritual wholeness inside that's motivating them to do something different or to help those outside of themselves. So in this peace-finding work that you do, my question is, I have two questions. One is, how do you define peace? I know it's subjective with every person, but this particular time, we've had a really rough, and I don't talk about politics, but just the everything leading up to this particular election was very anxiety building and strenuous, which is external things on somebody's peace and health. So how do you help them define peace? And then I have this, do people fake it till they make it? Because you can't just one day say, I'm just going to cut off that negative thought. So how do you make somebody think positively? And then define peace for me.
Well, you can't make another person. You can only make yourself, which I know what you're saying. But okay, so starting with the peace. Peace really is a feeling.
Hmm.
It's that feel, yeah, and your body of being relaxed and you're able to breathe easily. And it's kind of like when you sit on a comfy couch and you're happy with being in that moment, comfortable in your skin, feeling good, no worry and anxiety going through your head, no, palpitations or breathing difficulty and mind racing. It's the calmness of being perfectly happy to be in the moment that you're in. That's my definition of peace. No matter what's happening around you, whether it's financial difficulty or relationship struggles with family, friends, anything. If you're in a hurricane, if you can be relaxed in that moment and be perfectly content where you are and know that that's exactly where you're supposed to be and it feels good, that to me is a definition of peace.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, you're sitting in a hurricane. You're like, I'm going to be peaceful.
Okay, let me tell you though,
Yeah.
honestly, the reason I say that is because I experienced the hurricane in Houston back in 2019, I believe it was. And it millions of people, lost their homes. And it was in the middle of it. It was my birthday at midnight. August 28th was my birthday. And the water had come all the way up to the lip on our garage from the
Yeah.
cul-de-sac. Right.
Yeah.
So it's at 5 feet high from where it was. And it was beautiful. The rain was coming down at this point. It wasn't just storm crazy. The rain was still coming down, and the water was right there, inches from me. But all I could hear was the water and the frogs singing further off in the distance. And I made a choice at that moment. Do I want to be in worry and in fear? I've done everything that I could. I put my items up as tall as I could. I was ready to go to the neighbor's house, who was a second story next door if I needed to, if it went over that lip. So I prepared everything that I did, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this. I love the rain. I love nature. So I closed my eyes and put my hands on my lap and just listened to the beautiful rain and the frogs singing. And it's one of the most peaceful nights I've ever had in my entire life. And it was a
Wow.
choice. And I tell people that happiness is a choice because there's always something that you can be happy about. Happy that you have shelter, a house that you're living in. Maybe there's a little bit of food in the pantry. Do you have one friend or family
Mhm.
member that you can reach out to? Anybody that you love, whether it's a person or a pet? Anybody could find something to be grateful for and choose to be happy in that moment. Or we can choose to focus on the other that disturbs us and worries us. So you asked about fake it till you make it. That's how I started. I was actually in Al Anon, a 12-step program, and they say that fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
Just to stay in gratitude. And because it's a practice, we can't just go from what I went from utter chaos in my head and living in drama, growing up with parents that were constantly fighting and so much drug use. Both my parents passed away from overdose. And so it runs deep in my family. So to transition from living in complete chaos, which can be addictive because it's an adrenaline rush, to deciding I want to have this peaceful feeling of rest and relaxation. And so, with tons of practice, especially with gratitude and making a choice to change my thoughts, it's awareness. That's key. Recognizing in that moment, this thought isn't serving me. Either it's worry, fear, demeaning to myself, not positive about others. And first you click, you become aware, proud of yourself that you recognize that, and then shift it to what you would love. Um, Money's tight in the bank. That's something that people worry about a lot is money.
Yeah.
So what I learned that I've developed over the years is I have one little affirmation. I say, I'm thankful and grateful. I'll always be financially okay. Trust me, when I started, that was not the truth. That was the fake it to you make it. I'm thankful and grateful to always be financially okay. And I didn't believe it. But I started studying this stuff and people kept telling me, if you practice, it'll work. If you practice, it'll work. And I did. And at the time I was with my partner, and if I was worried about it, she would say it to me. If she was worried about finances, I would say it to her. And we hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And finally, at one point, it just clicked. And I realized I'm always going to be financially okay. And I only work 8 months out of the year because my kids are in school, and I will not work when they're off for Christmas or spring break or the summer. So I only work 8 months out of the year. So when it gets at the end of the summer and I haven't been working for 3.5 months and the bank account gets lower and lower and lower, I used to worry about, oh my goodness, is there going to be enough work coming in? What's going to happen? But since I've realized it's always going to be okay, my new response is, universe, show me what you got. And it's so much fun to see how the money comes in. And it's not just through business. I've manifested $10,000 one summer because I need it. And it came through, 2,500 of it came through savings bonds that I had in a box in my parents' attic that'd been there for 30 years. And it just so happened that summer, opened up that box, digging through to see what was in there I wanted to keep. $2,500 in savings bonds from when I was a toddler. So you never know. I know. But the coolest thing is I found an envelope and it had my mom's handwriting on it, who had passed away. And so that was the biggest gift, honestly. But then I opened up and there were those savings bonds. And I knew that the money was going to come that needed, and it did.
Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself. And, in my line of work, I believe that that's where it starts. Any change we hope to make in the world starts with change in ourselves. And I think you've given us really the defining moment, maybe, if not, the defining moment in your life that started you wanting to do the work. So you did the work for yourself. What was the moment that you wanted to help other people do the work for themselves, for peace, prosperity, and all that?
Well, first the door opened up with Wayne Dyer YouTube video for the New Thought Principles, and I just started diving in Deepak Chopra, Louise Hay, and I love this stuff. I can get my doctorate in this stuff. And so I started studying. And then when I got to the end, all I had left was my doctoral thesis. Knew I wanted to teach it because at that point I had to apply the principles. It was part of my course study. And so I went to a conference, and it's the second time for me to go to this conference. Now, the first time I went, they had a meeting about becoming a spiritual life coach, and I went, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't at a point in my doctoral program. I wasn't to a point emotionally, mentally ready for that, even though I didn't realize it. So I went to this session to learn about it. I was like, oh, that's totally not for me. I just made these conversations in my head. Well, when I went to the conference the following year, I told myself, I'd set the intention before I walked through the door. Universe, let me know my next step because I want to teach these principles. Well, it just so happened, which is not how it works, but you just say it out of the blue. I was introduced to this person that had a lot of the same path as me. And I told her where I was wanting to go. And she said, come to the coaching meeting. It sounds like a good. I was like, oh no, I went last year and it's not for me. Just try it. Ask some different questions. Go in there with an open mind and a different perspective. And even though it was the exact same presentation, same PowerPoint, everything, I heard it completely different because I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And it opened up that door, and that's what educated me to start this business and how to get clients. And it just totally shifted from going 100% of the sign language interpreter until moving it more over to becoming a spiritual life coach that I love.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. Okay. So in this podcast, we're really gathering us that are change makers and thought leaders. And so tell me what's the difference that the work that you're doing is making in your community?
Giving people a lot of confidence. So many people, like I said, they don't understand the power that they have, that the answers are out there. And often the answers come. So I teach people to put a question out there and to become aware of the answers because the answers are already there. They just don't trust themselves. And so I'm teaching people how to really trust themselves. One of my favorite stories is there was a woman who lost her job that had just started working these principles. And she got this invited to go to a potluck. And she said, this is dumb. I need to be looking for a job. I don't want to go to a potluck. But it kept coming up and coming up in her head. And she's fine, I'll go to a potluck. So she sits down next to this man. They just start talking. What do you do? Oh, what do you do? I'm looking for a job. Oh, what did you do? And she explains it. And he said, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So though those intuitive signs from universe, God, whatever you want to call your higher power, source of all things, comes in so many ways. And some of them you could never guess that it would happen. So when these intuitive nudges come, when these weird out there messages are given to us, it's about really trusting and having confidence that the answers are within you and that it's leading you to where you want to be. Because that whole saying, asking you shall receive, it's truth. It's how it works. But when you receive information, you got to trust it and you got to follow through. And it may not be that direct path sitting next to somebody and they saying, hey, come work to my office. It may be sitting next to a person having a conversation and saying, oh my gosh, I have a friend that did the same thing. Let me give you your number and maybe y'all can talk about it. You don't know how the path is going to get you there, but it's step by step by step. And looking back, it makes total sense. When you're in it or before you enter into it, it does not. So I'm really working on teaching others to be confident and trust themselves. And so many people want to start their own businesses and do something that they love, but they say stuck in a business out of work, out of security, being afraid to try something new. And that's where a lot of that confidence comes in, is I really help people follow their passion of what they would truly love to do, and have a job that I tell people, have a job that whenever you go to the conferences, it's more of a vacation and you get to use your vacations as a tax write-off because you love being there so much.
Yeah, it sounds like awareness is one of the top priorities that you teach people. Be aware, be aware. And then what your work does is give them the confidence to believe and then take a step. Take a step. But for every lovely thing you're explaining, there is a shadow side. There's a shadow side to everybody, to life. Is there anything you can share with us, like a really tough time, a knothole, a cave, a dark time you went through that you used maybe some of your own medicine to get through to the other side?
Yeah, I can actually tell you the worst. I just started presenting about this about 18 months ago because it was really hard for me to share. But what I've really learned is vulnerability can be very important. So when my partner and I of 7.5 years, who I thought I was going to be with forever, broke up, I got so incredibly depressed I couldn't even get out of bed. And I had made a plan for suicide. And I was just trying to calculate so my kids wouldn't find me. That was another one. How can I do it when my kids won't find me? And I was just about to follow through. I had the plan in place when I heard that intuitive, that still small voice that people talk about, call somebody. And my first thought was, I'm not calling anybody because I was a trained therapist. People call me when they need help. I am the matriarch of this family. I keep everyone together. People come to me for financial advice and for starting businesses. Why would I reach out? Because I used to have the saying, I don't need anybody. It did not serve me well in romantic relationships. So I learned, but that for many years, I didn't want to rely on anybody. And I don't want to need anybody. But you know what? We're all here together. I'm not an island. So finally, after several times of hearing that honestly still small voice, just call somebody, I followed it like I teach. And I reached out to my sister, which got me out of the funk. And I'm okay because I'm here today. But I got to that low of a point that I didn't even want to be here anymore. But just like I teach people to follow their intuition, no matter how crazy it sounds, doing that intuition, that something out there, that voice came from somewhere and said, you need to call somebody. And I did. And it saved my life, literally.
That's a powerful story. And I can understand why that was hard to come to grips going public with it. You know, there's things that happen in our life, the shadows, and we all have them. And we all have imperfections. And it's so hard to be upfront about that. I am very glad you called somebody, Laura. And
Me too.
And it's, that's good advice for anybody that's out there that's down on their luck right now and just feeling like there's nothing they can do to pull themselves out. Great advice to reach out to just about anyone, whoever it takes. Because I believe that, your sister, thank God for her, but gosh, even if it's somebody who's passing by you as you're trying to, do something, I think they would even help. But human contact is so important. Thank you for that story.
Absolutely.
Um, so what legacy do you hope to leave behind through your work?
Well, my number one legacy is I want my kids to be kind and accepting and loving of other people. That's my number one legacy. And the other is one of my favorite things is people say that I'm very positive. And so I don't realize it a lot, but I do. I like to look at the positives. If somebody loses their job, also often say, congratulations, that's amazing. Because that just means a new door is opening up. Not so great at the time, but it gives them that thought shift to think about things differently. And, or when people ask me, how you doing? And most say, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. I say, I'm happy. Yes, I am. I'm really happy. I found happiness. And it kind of knocks people over. Happy. People can just be happy. And then they say, why are you happy? And I go to the simple things that I'm grateful for. I got hot running water. My kids are healthy. I have a job. I have a friend that I get to go hang out with every other Friday. Just those little bitty things. And it gets people to think about what they can be grateful for. So if I had a legacy, I think it would be definitely to teach more about gratitude, that you can shift your perspective about pretty much anything, especially the hard stuff in life, because that's where we learn the most and grow the most through the hardest times. So if you can be in a terrible situation and in that moment be grateful for it and just say, thank you for the lesson that's coming, it helps. And for some reason, that lesson comes quicker and you figure out why you're living in that hell at that moment, which takes you back to heaven.
That's wonderful. And that also kind of segues into forgiveness. The things that do happen that come through another person, the shadow, the dark, the hurt, the pain. So what is forgiveness to you? And how do you describe it to get to the peace that you want your clients to have?
So forgiveness is not saying about what that person did is okay. Never. That's not what it's about. Forgiveness is about you letting go of that energy you've been giving that person for so long. Because we think if we put them away and we're angry, we're putting them off in jail and they're not going to get us anymore if we stay angry at them. But what happens is we have to be the jail keeper. We have to stay right there with them in jail because we think if we open up the door until we open the door and release them, then we're not released either. We're stuck in that cell. So, can I tell you a story of forgiveness to maybe give you an idea of
Fine.
my biggest story? So, my dad's partner of 29 years, me and my sister and my dad and Dirk had talked about when my dad passes away that we would split the estate 3 ways between Dirk, my sister, and I. It was talked about. It was known. We'd had several conversations. And so Dirk was the executor of my dad's estate. And when my dad died, Dirk decided, I don't think that's what your dad really meant. And so he kept all $3 million for himself. So that was $3 million. There's a little monetary label for it. But the worst part is Dirk couldn't stand my sister and I. And he made it quite clear that he did not want my father spending time with us, did not want my father spending money on us. And when we went there, it was hell. He was awful to me and my sister and just let us know that we were not loved and he did not want us there. So actually, when I was 18, I quit going to visit because I could not stand being around this man. So all these years of resentment built up because I lost that relationship with my dad. And then my dad passes away and I lose $1 million because he decided, I don't think that's what your dad meant. So here I am writing a book, and it's also my doctoral thesis. And And I get to a point, I just have this block. I'm at a writer's workshop. And so the person running it said, why don't you just take a break and go to the restroom? So I get up and I hear that still small voice, and it says, you have to forgive.
Mm.
And no, it said you have to write about forgiveness. And I was even though I know how important forgiveness is, I knew I had to write about it, but I didn't want to because I did not forgive this man. I was so angry, and I did not want to let go of this anger because what he did to me is how I labeled it.
Mm.
And so I go to the bathroom, you write about forgiveness. I'm like, yeah. I go and actually sit down, and I heard again, you need to forgive. And I spoke in the bathroom, no. And so I'm sure people in there thought I was crazy, whatever. So I go out, I'm going back into the room, and I hear for a third time, you need to forgive Dirk. And so I did. And I just started writing and writing and writing. And what I realized in that moment was because of Dirk's childhood and the way he was raised, he had 6 other siblings, and he never got the attention. He was one of the youngest, and he was always grappling for attention, and especially from my dad. And so when my sister and I came to visit, it was hard on him
Mhm.
because for the first time in his life, he had that attention that he craved. And
Oh.
after my dad passed away, he had no friends because he was incredibly selfish and nobody wanted to be around him. So I decided to let him go, to not have that resentment and that anger anymore, and just to love him where he is. And I even felt sorry for him, realizing that he no longer had friends. He has a ton of money, but he has nobody to share it with. And
Yeah.
about 6 months later, I was asked to go to a conference in LA, and I went and visited him. And when I knocked on the door, he actually opened the window upstairs and he said, can I help you? I said, Dirk, it's Laura. And his response was, who? And I said, your stepdaughter? It's like he had blocked me out. And I ended up going inside, and he had same stories, same complaints. But instead of being angry like I used to be about what he would say, on the inside, I was laughing a little bit. Oh, he has not changed. He has not grown. He still has no friends, and he's got a nice place to live, but he's unhappy. And I was able to let it go. And so that forgiveness piece, I'm not giving him energy. So when there's people that need to be forgiven, it's because we're giving them all that energy instead of being able to focus on what we would love and manifest to bring into our life. Instead, we're just thinking about how much we hate them and what they did to us. So just not giving them that energy anymore, that they don't deserve that energy. We deserve to have the energy on ourselves so we can grow and flourish and live a life we love instead of focusing on hate and anger and resentment.
Yeah. Great
Yeah.
story. And it sounds like transition is like an alchemical process to
Mm-hmm.
transition,
Mm-hmm.
hatred and anger
Mm-hmm.
into peace. Okay, quickly,
Mm-hmm.
leave our audience with a quick nugget of wisdom. Give us a nugget, so like a little something. If they're going off into their day, give us something to think about. Give us some wisdom or some motivation.
A little bitty nugget is gratitude is on the same level of abundance. It's one of the highest emotional vibrations that you can have. So if no matter what your emotion is, go into gratitude. There's actually a book called The Miracle, and you write different gratitudes for 30 days, and it will change the abundance. So you're wanting something to come into your life, be grateful for what you already have. Be grateful that it's coming, because that energy of the knowing that it's coming back. And if you're able to stick in that gratitude and feeling it like, oh my gosh, I already have this. This is amazing. That's going to take you up to the energetic vibration that you need to bring any kind of abundance that you would love to have in your life.
Dr. Laura Cole, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and all your wisdom and those wonderful nuggets, the alchemical transition. We can all use that. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. I've loved this. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Laura, Dr. Laura Cole, for joining us today and for being so candid and trusting and sharing with us some heartfelt experiences in hopes that it will inspire others maybe out there to take a breath, take a moment before reacting. So thank you for listening. I'm your host, Angel Howard, and I would love to get to know you better. send me an email at angel@angelhoward.co or book me for a speaking engagement. Again, you can go to my website, angelhoward.co, or you can even dive deeper into your own journey of self-discovery. Buy my book, Issues in Your Tissues, on Amazon.com. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.